The purpose of this video is to help you get ready for SRR. If you're watching this video, then you've been through the systems engineering process on a particular project and you've got an SRR scheduled and now you're trying to get ready for that. So what I want to do in this video is give you some help on developing your presentation for that, but specifically in the context of your SRR. Okay, so if you look, you've probably been through these steps to develop requirements for your design problem or similar steps, and you're sitting right here at the stage validate. So you're going to go into, there we go. You're going to go into SRR and you're going to do your SRR presentation. I put presentation in quotes because don't think of SRR as a classroom presentation. Don't think of it like a speech. It is not a speech. Your SRR is a formal, structured working meeting. And that's the way you want to look at it. Is yes, you are prepared. Yes, you are formal. Yes, you have PowerPoint. You have different things you're showing. But it is a working meeting. You want a very much to create an environment where you and the customers, you as the consultant, the customer as the company are talking. You are having a structured conversation. And you definitely want to view yourself, even though you're a student, you want to view yourself as a consultant coming in here with this company, not as a classroom presentation. And when you go into your SRR, you've already given them the operational concept document and the interface control document. That gives them background on what's happened, as well as they have seen your specific requirements and you have requested that they look at those ahead of time. Okay, so specifically what I want to do now is just kind of go through a presentation on preparing a systems requirement review. And here's how I'm going to do that with you. So the first thing I'm going to do is just help you understand the what of a presentation, just in general, any presentation that you're doing. Then I'm going to go through a 5-step process that you can use to actually develop your presentation. Then I'm going to give you some tips specifically for your SRR. Now, all through I'll be focusing on SRR, but I'm going to spend some time giving specific tips for a systems requirements review. And then I'll end with reviewing the key what's for your SRR. What is it that you really want to accomplish with your SRR? Okay, so let's jump in. It's key when you think about doing a presentation. And when I say presentation, that doesn't necessarily mean standing up and doing a PowerPoint. It could be sitting before your boss. It could be sitting before a couple of peers. It is your SRR. And so when I say, what are you trying to do with the presentation? You have some idea in your head, and what you're trying to do with your presentation is put that idea in someone else's head. Whether it's you're trying to convince your boss to let you go work on a particular project, the SRR, whatever it is. But you've got an idea in your head that you want to create in somebody else's head. And how do you do that? You do that with any trick in the book. We think of presentations as talking, as showing slides. But that's only one tool in order to get an idea from your head into somebody else's head. I want to tell you about 2 presentations that I was involved in and kind of use them as examples as we're going through this. The first one, I had been working for MasterBrand, I don't know, probably not even a month. And my boss comes in and he says, hey, we're going to Boston. I said, okay, why are we going to Boston? And he said, well, with Fortune Brands, any project over $1 million has to go before a formal consulting company. There was a company called A.D. Little. They were a huge international consulting company. You have to go before them, present the project, and convince them that we know what we're doing and we're going to be successful. And they have to tell Fortune Brands, yes, they believe we can accomplish this project before Fortune Brands will give us the money. So I'm like, okay, no pressure. So we go and we do that presentation. And when we got off the plane and A.D. Little was there and people were introducing everybody, I was introduced as Dr. Fortney. Now, nobody called me Dr. Fortney in the plant. I was Bill. But what were we doing? Right off the bat, we wanted to create the idea in them that we knew what we were doing, we had a team put together, we had a plan, and we could accomplish this project, and they should tell Fortune Brands to give us the money. So right off the beginning, we wanted to set the tone of the professionalness of our team. So that's how I was introduced. Now, another presentation, fast forward, I don't know, maybe another 6 months. It wasn't a long time ago. Again, I was in my office working. My boss came in and he said, "Hey, I need you to do a presentation for Norm Wesley." And I'm like, "Okay." And he started laughing and he said, "You have no idea who Norm Wesley is." And I said, "No." He said, "Well, he's the head of Fortune Brands, which at the time was about a $7 billion corporation." He said, "He is going to come to the plant and I need you to do a presentation on this particular project for him." Now, Norm Wesley was probably out on a golfing trip. In fact, it may have even been when the Masters was. And so he was swinging through the plant and he just wanted to stop by the plant to see how things were going, to just get an idea about the project. So what idea were we trying to leave in his head? We were trying to leave the idea that we appreciated his money, we appreciated him having the trust in us and giving us the money, and things were going fine with the project. So, was I introduced as Dr. Fortney? No. The room was set up very informal. We had a table with a tablecloth and some tea and other stuff set up on it. I was Bill. It was a totally indifferent environment than with A.D. Little because there were two very different things that we were trying to show to them. But the thing that I want you to see is a presentation, getting an idea from your head into someone else's head, is not just talking. You use whatever you need to do to effectively get that idea across. Now, for you, what idea are you trying to get into the heads of the customers? You're trying to get in their idea, in their head, that you understand their problem and that you have what it takes and you can satisfy their need. That's really what you're trying to do with SRR. The other thing on this is understanding what you're trying to do is make sure you know what you want to accomplish. I always think of a presentation. Here's my audience beforehand. Here's my audience afterwards. How are they different? What's different about them? What are they left with? What key ideas do they walk away with? Again, A.D. Little, we wanted them to walk away with, wow, these guys have it together. They know what they're doing. And we need to tell them to give them the money because they're going to be successful. Norm Wesley, I wanted him to walk away with, wow, those people at the plant are really nice and they appreciate what we've done for them and their project's going fine. So everything about how we treated them was different because those two different purposes. For you, your purpose is that the customer comes away, what are they left with? What's different? What's different about them is they know that you understand their requirements and that you can satisfy their need, and that they're ready to let you move on to conceptual design. They're ready to give you the money, to give you the approval, to move on to conceptual design. That's what you want to be different. So what do? You do anything you need to do for that to be accomplished right there. Okay, so specifically your SRR. Be real, be personable. I said it before, but I want to emphasize this. This is not a speech. You do not want to get up and start talking and be talking to the back of the room. You're talking to your customer, to people in the room, and so you very much want that to come across that way and be interactive that way. Okay, so some steps that you can use to put your presentation together. When I'm doing a formal presentation, when I go to a conference, I go through these steps when I'm trying to put something together. So the first one is you have to know your subject. Now, for you, this is huge. You guys are the consultants. I am paying you. So you've got to know what you're talking about when you come to SRR. If you've been on the fringe of your project and you've let other people do it, then you need to catch up really quick because that's going to come out in SRR. These people expect you to be experts on this particular problem that you've been studying and that you're presenting the requirements for. And so please make sure you understand everything about this project. If you look at the detailed functions outlined with facts and you don't understand what all those facts are, you've got a problem and you need to clarify those, okay? So know your subject. The second thing is you need to know your audience and what you're trying to accomplish. We talked about the what, we'll come back to that. But with your audience, in general, the background, that kind of thing, their knowledge of the subject. Your audience are going to be engineers. They know the systems engineering process, but they likely don't know the problem you're studying. In the systems engineering course, they don't know the plant. Remember, they're from corporate. They may have visited the plant once or twice, but they probably don't remember a lot of details about the plant. Also, you need to know what's important to your audience. One of the things with MasterBrand when I was there, every time I went and asked for money, I received it. And it wasn't because anything special about me. I just knew if I couldn't show what I wanted money for would benefit what was important to my boss, then there was no reason to ask. So I only asked if I could show that it benefited what was important to him. So your audience, they're engineers. That means they like details. They like specifics. They don't like to feel like they're being snowed or you're making something up when you don't know what you're talking about. That's your audience. Then the final thing about your audience is make sure you know what you want from them. You want them to approve your requirements, to approve your SRR and say, yes, you're ready to move on. So keep that in mind. Then the third thing is determine your key points. And this is really where all the work is. You know what you want to accomplish. I'm going to talk about that for your SRR the next slide. You know your subject, you know your audience. Now you've got to figure out what are the specific things that I want to cover. And what I do is I brainstorm. I say, well, what would I talk about? I close my eyes. I imagine the presentation going on. And I think about things happening. And then I write points down. And then I create an outline. I don't know any other way to do it. So I take all those brainstorming ideas I've written down and I begin to group them into the whats, the main points. And I say, okay, yeah, this would fit over here, and I organize it. I don't know any other way to do that besides just the hard work of generating all the ideas and then organizing it together. For your SRR, here's what I view as the key whats. What you want to accomplish with your SRR. You need to get people comfortable with you as a company, to give them that feeling that, hey, you've got what it takes to develop this for them. You want to help them understand why you're here today. Why are we even having an SRR? They may not have worked with companies that necessarily do formal processes like that, so you may need to give them a big overview of your process to see where SRR fits into it. Obviously, you want to clearly present the need, the problem statement. What are we trying to accomplish in the plant? Why are we doing this? Again, the corporate guys may not know. Or if it's your senior project, you've been given a problem, but everyone in the room isn't necessarily up on all the details to know about it, so you're bringing them up to speed on that. You also want to give an operational description showing what your device is going to do in the plant. You want to let the customer see operationally what would it look like if this was operating in my plant. You don't know how it's going to work, but to meet their need, it has to do certain things in their plant operationally, and you're going to explain that to them. Then obviously you want to present your requirements. You want to present the evaluation criteria, be clear on the deliverables, and then gain their approval to move on. So that's what you want to do in your SRR. And you're going to have to outline and create all that to make that work. So then number 4, you know what you want to do. Then you have to make it flow. And that's where the outline comes in. Remember, you're trying to take an idea from your head, create it in their head. And the only way I know to do that is to take your reader through a logical progression of ideas that builds until they have that idea that you want. Um, Assume nothing. You've been living with this. The rest of the people have not. So it's going to be real easy for you to go here and then jump all the way up here and everybody else is lost. You don't want to do that. You want to anticipate and answer your audience's questions. What do they need to know in order to come to the same conclusions that you did, that these are the needs, these are the requirements? And you want to step them through logically from A to B to get there. And again, I don't know any way to create that logical progression of ideas without very carefully outlining your presentation and looking how everything fits together. Okay, now a point as you're doing that, as you're organizing, people get lost in details. They get lost if they don't see connections, if they don't see why, they don't see the big picture of what you're talking about. So what you always want to do in your presentation, and this is all through it, at the very, very beginning, at each new point, all down through, you want to give them the what, the big picture. Why am I talking about this? Then give them the details so they have a frame of reference. So for example, I want to show you this really, really, really cool picture. Okay, here it is. Look at those guys. Isn't that great? You may be looking at this picture thinking, okay, that's because I've given you the details first. What if I had done this? If I said, look, I want to show you something really cool. My wife and I were at Mount Rainier, and then look at the outline. We were looking at the outline of the mountain in the water, and then we looked over and saw these two deer right there. And it was just so neat right in the midst of that big mountain to see those deer. Now, doesn't that picture make a lot more sense? Right there, it's just two deer. When you see the big picture and then hone in, the details have context. They matter more. That's what you want to make sure you're doing. So as you're outlining, you want to make sure you're giving people for each transition idea the big picture and then the details. Okay, remember the sections that you have to lead them through. You got your intro, body, and conclusion. The intro is going to let you connect with people and let them know what's coming. The body is going to answer all their questions. That's going to make the case. The conclusion is where you're going to close the deal. You want them to approve your SRR, you need to make sure that you ask. Okay, a couple things on the intro. This is really where it makes or breaks your presentation. You want to connect with people. You want to draw them in, get personal, and be very clear on why we're here today. Why are we here? We're here to review your problem and look at our requirements and agree that we understand it and can move on to conceptual design. You also want to make sure you give an overview, especially when engineers are involved. Engineers want to know what's coming. So you want to make sure you let them know the structure of your presentation. And remember, just like I said with A.D. Little, when we got off the plane, I was introduced as Dr. Bill Fortney. Our presentation started right then. Same way with Norm Wesley. As soon as he arrived at the plant, the way we greeted him, how we took him tour through the plant, what the rooms looked like. Your presentation starts as soon as they arrive. So plan, how are you going to greet people? Where will you be standing? How's the room going to be arranged? All those details are part of you getting the idea from your head into their head. So plan those things. Okay, and then your conclusion, just remember that's your last chance. So if you want action, ask for it. Okay, and then step 5, make it live. Now honestly, most of us when we go to do a presentation, we jump on PowerPoint. That's step 5. We haven't even touched PowerPoint 1 through 4 yet. That's when you make it live with stories, visuals, all the other stuff. So what you want to do is use visuals to enhance. Use visuals to do what you can't do very well with words. But I want to be clear, when I use the word visuals, visuals may be a PowerPoint diagram, it may be a model, it may be a simulation, it may be a whiteboard. All those things are visual tools to help you get your point across. And what you want to do is select the right tool for the job. You can waste a lot of time putting something in PowerPoint that you could have just held up and it been much, much more effective to communicate your point. So really be thoughtful and creative about what can I do to enhance what I'm trying to communicate to people. Okay, so a few practical tips. Number one, come in confident and own the room. This is your meeting, so take charge of it and act like it's your meeting. Now, be humble, be gracious, be respectful. Be real and personable. Remember I said this isn't a speech. It's a formal, structured working meeting. But come in with confidence like you are in charge of this meeting. Okay, also remember that you're the expert. You understand this problem better than anybody in the room right now. But also be quick to see and admit when you've missed something, when you've misunderstood something. It's still their system, and so you've got to have that respect. Be ready to logically defend your position with confidence, but also be ready to carefully think through your comments and be quick to change if you're wrong or if you don't know. The goal is not to be right. It's to determine what's best for the customer. And practice these words. I didn't think about that. If they ask you a question that you didn't think about, say, you know what, I didn't think about that. If you have a good answer, say, you know, right now I think we would do this, but I need to go back. Don't feel like you have to answer right then. Sometimes they're going to ask you a question just to make sure you are smart enough to say, I don't know. I didn't look at that. I need to come back and talk to you later about it. Assume nothing. You have been living with this. The rest of the people have not. So don't assume that they know things. And don't be bashful. Sometimes people feel bashful about telling about their system. Don't. Especially like the guys from corporate, especially the plant manager. He probably doesn't know all the details. So don't be bashful about telling them things about their system. Talk to them like you're a set of consultants and they are the company, not like you were students. Come in like you were consultants. We'll take timeouts when needed, and then you can talk as a student. But the bulk of your presentation, you're talking as a consultant. Okay, always, always, always. What? Big picture, then the details. At the beginning of your presentation for the whole thing, and throughout when you're transitioning ideas, make sure people know, why is this on the screen? What are they trying to accomplish with this? That they got the big picture before you lose them in details. Don't forget your opening slide. A lot of times people are going to see that slide longer than any other slide because that's the one that's up there while they're waiting for your presentation to start. So be thoughtful about that slide, what you want it to communicate. You want that to be one of the most impressive looking slides, so when they're sitting there, they're like, wow, this company's really got it together. Also, manage your handouts. I've said this before, but watch your version control. You don't want them to have something in the operational concept document that's different than what's on the screen. So be careful when you're putting those together. Make sure you let people know what's in front of them. If they've got handouts, say, hey, in front of you is this. When you want them to look at something in front of them, direct them to that and say, hey, now if you take out that, look on page 5, there's the requirements. I'm going to put those up on the screen. And then just another note, be careful about the same material being in multiple places. Okay, be prepared, show up early, test on the equipment that you're going to use. Use an outline and notes if you need to, but do not read. Have good eye contact. Practice, especially the opening. Be calm and confident. Look at people. I should have had that below that one. Look at people. Have good eye contact. Scan the room. Remember, it's not a speech. You're not staring at the back of the room. You're talking to people. You're interacting with people. Don't apologize. Now, if you said something wrong, obviously say, oh, I'm sorry, that was not right. But don't apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to have a better slide than this, but we didn't. No. You have what you have, and so don't apologize for that. Oh, I'm sorry. One of my team members couldn't get his stuff. I mean, don't throw people under the bus, but don't apologize. Dress appropriately. You're a group of consultants coming in doing this project, and have fun. Presentations like this should be fun because you've done a lot of work, you understand the system, and you're getting ready, you're able to go and talk about it. So have fun. And then look very, very closely at what you're trying to accomplish, and then design an experience to accomplish that. Don't design a presentation. Don't design a PowerPoint. Design an experience to get the idea from your head to their head. You're trying to ensure that the customer design team are in complete agreement concerning the system to be designed. Design an experience to do that. Normally, you would be ensuring that you agree on the performance and the verification. For your systems engineering project, sometimes you won't do that. You'll do that at conceptual design. So make sure you ask your instructor, are we doing that for this particular review? Take notes. Make sure someone is designated as taking notes. If I'm the customer and I point out something that's missing and I don't see anybody writing it down, I'm going to be worried. Also, capture action items. Oh yeah, we need to follow up and to see if there really is a lip on that, to see whether we really can modify that. Whatever action items come up, capture them, and then towards the end of your meeting, you want to specifically stop and clarify action items. Have somebody say, okay, now let me make, before we leave, let's be clear. These are the action items that we have. Is that good? So you want to clarify those at the end of your meeting. Okay, I talked about these before, but I want to hit them one more time. The key what's for your SRR. One of them is to present your requirements. One way that I've seen people do that that's pretty effective is, first of all, you need to show us what the organization for your requirements is. How are your requirements organized? So my requirements for this example were organized around these high-level functions. And then what I did was I presented them in groups like that. I said, okay, here's the first group of requirements. You've looked at those ahead of time. Does anybody have questions or anything you'd like to talk about on these requirements? You want to make sure that you have your slides from the interface control document that you reference, so that if someone has a question, you can jump to the back of your slide deck, pull up that diagram, and then talk through it. Remember, it's a working meeting. There's nothing wrong with jumping around when a question is asked. Then go to the next one. Okay, this group of requirements. Anybody have any questions on these? So that's a way that you can present your requirements and not go through every single one. Okay, so kind of to pull things together and to close things up. You're trying to get an idea from one person's head to another person's head. What are the big things you're trying to accomplish with your SRR? That's it right there. These are the big things that you're trying to do. How do you do it? Any trick in the book. Design an experience to do this. And I encourage you to go through those 5 steps to try to have a really good presentation able to do that. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your SRR and what you come up with.